So remember way back when, I think, first 2 weeks we talked about Brittany and her jewelry company, ABC Jewels. Well, now, she's gotten her net accounts. She's starting to get some revolving accounts reporting to her business credit reports, but she still needs a bit of money. So she's went to her financial advisor and she wants to have a conversation with them about whether or not she can borrow from her 401k to help continue to fund her business. Now, do you think this is something that she can legally do? Yes or no, and why? Let's go ahead and light the chat up. So she wants to borrow from her 401k to help fund her business. Is this something that she can do as an entrepreneur? Okay, got a yes so far. Yep, yep, but she will be taxed. Yep, yep. And we'll talk about that tax part, because there's a difference between taking out a loan from my retirement and withdrawing from my retirement. All right. So the thing that I think is going to be more important for us to think about, a couple of things before we even think about going this route. First and foremost, loan versus a withdrawal. So a loan, you're borrowing against the money that you're investing in, right? So even though you're taking that money out, it's basically like a secured loan, right? You're taking that loan out against your money that's already reporting. And the good thing about borrowing, taking out a loan against your 401k, is that you'll still be getting that interest even though you'll be paying it back, right? But the difference between that and a withdrawal is, once you withdraw something, and if you're under the age of 60, you'll be hit with, tax penalties, the 10% federal, and then depending on the state, they might also come hit you with some state tax as well. So whenever you're thinking about your 401k, go for loans over withdrawals. Make withdrawals kind of like that last resort. Like, this is the only funding source that I have access to, and it's some money that I have, and I'm okay with getting that 10% penalty against it if I'm below 60. But the kind of stipulation with loans that we often don't think about is, you can only take out loans of those 401k accounts for employers that you're actively with. So again, like, unless you are with that employer right now, 9 times out of 10, like that 401k account won't let you borrow against it, because you're no longer working with them. They will give you the option to withdraw, which, you can do from every 401k account that you have. But again, like, I would try to, like, if you could roll over all of those into that active method of employment that you have, because then that total amount will be rolled over into that one account, and you'll be able to borrow from that, as opposed to only having withdrawal restrictions if it's sitting on their old accounts. So something definitely to think about in terms of, overall consideration for your person as well as your business. Because when you're talking about your 401, when you have like multiple accounts, you kind of want to see whether or not you want to roll them over into one, or, maybe roll them over into IRA, which is another place that, can be a place that you can get some money and kind of think about. But in general, a 401k is a great resource that I want us to keep in mind if ever we need to, but just understand the stipulations based on where you are in your personal, like, employment journey, and how that might work out with taking this up as a source. All right, so some other kind of forms that are out there, and will be a bit dependent on where we are in our journey, and I think will become much more sufficient as we kind of get more months and years under our belts in terms of our overall business. So equipment financing, I think, is a great place. One, because it provides an opportunity to add installment type accounts, largely because that's a lot of the equipment that you would be leasing across industries, would be on like that installment kind of like method. So that would be a great space. One, because even though you are taking money out, or borrowing money to get this, the kind of what you'll recoup in terms of actually needing that equipment to conduct your business, to maybe automate some processes, or whatever that equipment means to you, your particular business, and the niche that you operate in, having that is something that could boost those profits, that will not only repay whatever monthly installment you have to pay against the equipment, but it'll also help you bring in profit as well, right? So with equipment financing, think about not just the amount of money that you're going to have to put out, but how much more money will you be able to bring in, simply because you have that equipment. Or, and equipment doesn't have to be like physical, right? It can also be technology, as we're moving into like AI, which I want to talk about a bit more in a bit. But as we're becoming much more technological, and the idea of considering what is equipment continues to evolve, don't not factor in technological equipment and how that can also help automate processes and whatever else you need that stuff for to kind of maximize profit to be able to pay back these things on top of whatever else you got coming in the pipe for your operating costs. Merchant advances are basically like credit lines against like your credit card transactions. So like in some ways you're building a relationship where like you don't have to pay those merchant fees out of pocket because of the line of credit that you have installed with it. That's something that I think is it's very niche dependent. And I think, it's something to consider only if it would benefit you. Like, yes, building that relationship is good, but in all the other areas that we've been focusing on over the past couple of weeks, like this isn't something that would be necessary, only if it will provide value and it's something that you think will be beneficial in the long run. And lastly, revenue-based loans. So based on the revenue that you bring in as a small business owner, you can actually borrow against that in some ways. So this is a good option for like folks who have steady income streams of revenue, but don't qualify for those traditional loans. So this could be another space for those of us who are working on our personal reports and trying to get things up to date, or just, in that crazy process of disputing, which, the personal credit bureaus are becoming much more aware and trying to, keep us from what they know we legally should have access to. But think of this as another one of those options if you needed it, in terms of, like, I think for my folks who are working on their person. So both the 401k element as well as the revenue-based loan, which could be something that, if you're already producing revenue, not only is that good to show in terms of your business plan when you're soliciting this money from those folks, but if they're utilizing your personal report or looking at your debt to limit ratio or looking at your history from your personal credit report and they're saying that maybe they want to not do something right now, having that revenue would allow them to be able to see, well, even though they're working on themselves as a person, their business is bringing in money in a way that I think that regardless of where they are as a consumer, that they could do this based on the revenue that I'm seeing. So they'll want you to kind of like make that loan based on the revenue that they're seeing and what they would consider you be able to continue to bring in based on that. All right. So kind of moving into just like an overview of class, I wanted to remind us of like those 20 compliance elements that we talked about. In the first week, we talked about these first 9. So thinking about just setting up our entity as a whole, making sure that our EIN, our DUNS, all of our demographic information, like address, phone number, email, website, all that is up to date. And then after all of that is done, making sure that our credit profiles are up with the 4 agencies, starting to build those credit histories in our business profiles, starting with those net 30 accounts or those net accounts, depending on like what the days are, then moving into revolving accounts, which will then help us be able to talk about those last 3 that I just mentioned. So installment accounts, that bank loan or equipment lease. So bank loan is different from that secured loan that we talked about earlier. So these are like those loans that are not, that don't have to fall within like being defined as something that's like you have to personally guarantee or secure something. And that's also going to be the space where equipment leasing will also come into terms. And in total, something that we didn't mention, but I think once you kind of look at having at least seven on your net side, and then at least 5 on your revolving side, trying to have at least a total of 15, like across all 4 of your agencies is ideal. Excuse me. Because that's going to be what is supportive and maximizing your opportunity to get not just money itself, but larger amounts in terms of the credit that they'll be able to give to you. And of course, I'm gonna move that next time, but like making sure that your business plan is up to date and compliant, and showing not just your market analysis, which is going to be an important space that most people will start at, but like your revenue projections, because they want to know, 1, do you know the industry that you're trying to penetrate, and 2, what profit do you see yourself being able to accumulate based on your knowledge of being unique in a lot of these markets that are like oversaturated. Well, I shouldn't say oversaturated, but have a lot of competition.